Good evening, South Africa and Zimbabwe. Welcome to Global Education. We've got another webinar for you today or this evening. We do know that some schools are in holiday mode at the moment. We do have a couple of school counselors that are joining with us today. We're just going to give it a couple of minutes for people to carry on signing on, and then we'll get started. A little bit of housekeeping while we wait. We're Global Education. My name is George. We help students, counsel them, select the entire process from start to end. We also get really involved with your schools in helping identify the best practice and services to help all students get an opportunity to study overseas. So if you are unsure or you'd like to know more, listen in on this webinar, and at the end, take a picture of that screen or on the screen with the info, contact details, and contact us. Alicia, we've got everybody that's signed on is already here. So everybody, we've got Alicia Butterfield here, who's the regional manager at Loughborough University. That's all I'm going to say. I'm going to let her take over straight from now, and we'll see you for the Q&A section at the end.
Great, thank you so much for the introduction. So everybody, as I was just very kindly introduced, and I'm just going to ask for George to confirm that you can see my screen okay. Before I start talking. Perfect, thank you. My name is Alicia, and I'm regional manager for Loughborough University. And I will talk to you about Loughborough a little bit today, in case some of you don't know about us. But Loughborough University is not the focus of today's main presentation. What I'm going to try and do is address instead the wider topic of what sport can do for you. And I know this seems like a very vast topic, but we know we've just had the Olympics. It is technically shown that if you watch sport and you watch activities, it does actually start to make you want to feel like you want to move yourself. Studies have shown that is the case. And really, for those of you who are sitting here this evening thinking, I'm into sport a little bit and I want to see how far I can go with it. Some of you might be sitting here and you are really into your sport and you really want to make it a part of your future, maybe part of your future career. But others might be sitting here thinking, I'm not very sporty. I don't see what this has to do with me. And this is what I'm going to tell you today. So I'm going to explain why sport is actually part of everyday life and how much it can help you in your future career, especially. We know that going to university is all about the job that you can get in the future. That's what your parents will be hoping that you're focusing on, as well as having fun at university. So this is how sport can actually feed into your future career and how it can enhance yourself, your personal development, through the development of emotional intelligence. And I'm coming to you speaking from the world's best sports university. So we are well placed to advise you about this. A little bit of detail then about where Loughborough is. And this is how it's pronounced, by the way. It's not Loughborough, it's not Loughborough, it's not Loughborough, it's Loughborough. And it's right in the centre of the UK. It's about 1 hour, 20 minutes north of London, is our main campus of Loughborough. And we have good transport links to the whole of the UK. It's not as vast as South Africa by a long way, so nothing in the UK is too far from anything else. We do also have a London campus as well, and that opened in 2015. That's actually on the site of the Queen Elizabeth Olympic Park, and the London campus is just for postgraduate students. So if you wanted to study in London, but you also want a top university or a top sports university, then you can look at our London campus. I'm just going to run through what we're going to cover so you have an idea about what we're discussing today and why we're all sat here. Starting first and foremost with Loughborough's sporting credentials. Who on earth are we to tell you why sport is important and what it can do for you? Why have we got this attachment to sport and what bearing does it have on this? And then we're going to focus on what it can actually do for you. Now, we know it helps your physical health. We're aware of that. Any of you with a basic level of biology will know that it does help you physically. But we also know that it helps mental health as well. And in the last year to 18 months, I think we can agree that most of us have really felt the need for that additional support, that additional awareness of what the impact on mental health can be about doing extra things to support that. What may not be so clear is how sport actually helps career development. And I know in this session, a few of you are going to be school counsellors, maybe talking to your kids, your students, about what it is they're going to do in the future and trying to advise them about future career potentials. But how can sport actually help somebody when it comes to getting a job in the future, or having the ability to move up in the ranks once they get a job somewhere and start working for a company? One thing I will cover today is the kind of support that an elite athlete can expect from Loughborough University. We do have many elite athletes who study and live with us at Loughborough, and we do give them some exceptional support, so I want to run through that as well. And then I'll spend a little bit of brief time talking about our research. So Loughborough is a very strong research-intensive university. We've got 5 stars in the QS Research World Rankings, which is it's the highest accolade you can get. So we're at the top of our game in terms of research output. And actually, sport research isn't just maybe what you'd think it would be from the start. We don't just look at how teams can be an effective team. Sport can permeate lots of different areas of research, and a lot of it has a global impact, and I'll tell you about that as well. But ultimately, what we're here to do today is to try and understand the role of sport and well-being in our lives, regardless of your level, your competitiveness, and your ability. And full disclosure, that last one applies to me. I love sport. I do take part in lots of different sports. I'm not always great at some of them. But I think one of the fantastic things about Loughborough Uni is that even though it's an elite sports university, I can still take part in things as much as anybody. And I'm still able to participate in whatever I want to join, basically. Who's this talk for then? So some of you sitting here might be international or national level athletes. I know that coming from South Africa this year, we have 2 students already who have represented at national level for cricket and rugby. I'm expecting that more may be joining them as well. It's also for athletes who are aspiring to go into the sports that they're playing at professional level. So that might be that you want to become a sports coach, you want to become a physical fitness trainer, you might want to become a nutritionist or one of those other associated jobs. It's also for students who just enjoy sport for pleasure. So if you're sitting here and you love reading, but you also like playing netball, for example, that's absolutely fine. This talk is for you as well. And actually, the students who aren't involved in any type of physical activity, the talk's also for you as well. So it's very inclusive, everything from Olympic athletes to people who do fun runs, people who just want to keep in shape, or any of the above. So that's what we're going to address today. A little bit of background for the university. This is some of the historical background of Loughborough. In the top right there, that's our original football team. And in the top left is our original swimming pool. Now, I don't know if any of you have been to the UK, and if you can imagine how cold that would have been, having an outdoor pool. That's around about 1913 that photo was taken. So Loughborough has this really, really long history of sport. We were playing cricket against the All England 11 squad since 1856. Rugby, Union Rugby celebrated its centenary in 2019. And actually the university started as a sort of technical college, but then moved more towards becoming a university. At the same time, we were training officers around about the time of the First World War. So all of this history has been a big part of Loughborough ever since its inception, when we were a technical college, right the way through to now when we're a fully fledged university. And its sort of highlight has been in 2015 when we opened our London campus on the Queen Elizabeth Olympic Park. In terms of our history, obviously then it's a very long history that we have, and we do have this mantra that's repeated around campus. If you go to the gyms, you'll see it on all the walls. If you have any of the Loughborough kits, if you join any of our teams, you'll get a shirt that says where history begins. And that's going to be the Loughborough mantra, which you'll see repeated all around campus. But it is where history begins. So much of our history is tied into sport. And a lot of that now shows, that now shows with our current credentials. So for those of you who aren't aware, Loughborough has been ranked first in the world, out of all the universities in the world, for sport-related subjects since 2017. And because we're Loughborough, we are very proud that that's been for 5 years. We've been #1 in the world, but we're also looking towards the next 5 years. And I'm pretty sure that somewhere there is the aspiration that Loughborough is going to be #1 in the world for 10 years. And that would be a fantastic achievement to have. There's something called the British Universities and Colleges Competition of Sport, or BUCS. That's been running for 40 years, and Loughborough has won that competition every single year for 40 years. So we're the undefeated BUCS champions. That's a big competition for all sports. In the 2012 Olympics in London, we had 80 students and alumni who were competing in that games, in the Olympics and Paralympics. And in the Olympics that have just finished, if we were a country, then we would have finished 16th, and that's higher than Spain. So I'll just let that settle in for a moment. In terms of medals, Loughborough would have achieved higher than many countries. We also got 30 medals in the 2018 Commonwealth Games. Lord Sebastian Coe is our Chancellor of the university, so that's whose hand you'll shake when you graduate from Loughborough. He's also President of the World Athletics Association. And we have around 400 performance athletes who are currently studying with us. A performance athlete is basically anyone who's studying and working at an elite athlete level. So they want to go into professional sport in some capacity. So that's who we are. That's where we're coming to this discussion from. So we have lots of affiliations. We have lots of national centres that we work with. I won't list all of them because I'm sure you can read for yourselves the type of organisations that we work with. If any of you are football fans at all, we are partnered with West Ham and Chelsea FC. We're home to various different centres, but most importantly, probably from a research point of view, is the National Centre for Sport and Exercise Medicine. That's a £20 million development on the Loughborough campus that enables us to look into any type of diseases or illnesses associated with not doing sport. So diabetes, heart disease, obesity, stress, any of those kind of illnesses, they're all researched in the National Centre. And if you are a student at Loughborough, sometimes you can earn some extra money by going down and basically volunteering to be a guinea pig in the centre, and people measure your heart rate, take your blood, that type of thing. So this is Loughborough. I will leave you to look up the university and go to our website if you want to know more. And the details for that will be at the very end of this. I think we're going to have a Q&A at the end of this session anyway. But there's lots of information in the public domain. So I'm not going to spend lots of time telling you all about the university. In terms of sport programs, we've got so many. I just had to summarise them here as the vague areas that we'll be able to cover. But it's very important to also emphasise we don't just offer sport at Loughborough. You can study pretty much any programme. The only ones we don't offer are law and nursing, but everything else from finance to international relations to civil engineering or art and design, Loughborough has those programmes. And even if you're studying one of those programmes and you want to play sport, that's fine. You don't need to study sport in order to play it or even represent the university. So I'll leave you to do your own research in that respect. What I really want to talk to you about is why is sport relevant? What can it do for you? And try and get you engaged and thinking about that, especially in the context perhaps of your school studies and the things you're involved with at the moment. So sport is relevant because obviously it leads to physical fitness. We now know much more, we're talking much more about mental fitness as well. And that's a conversation which I think has changed in the last 10 years, let alone the last 20 or 30 years. The association between sport and mental health is probably much stronger now than it's ever been before. And as I said at the start, what we haven't yet really explored in lots of scenarios is what help to your future career can sport provide for you? So why is it worth doing and how is it worth integrating into your life? And as I said at the start as well, we're also going to be looking at personal development through emotional intelligence. I think one really topical thing to look at was the Olympic values. I don't know if everybody here has been keeping an eye on the Olympics and watching them and seeing who's doing what and how it's done, but these are the three main Olympic values: excellence, friendship, and respect. Now, I'm not saying that all athletes or trainers or fans or even the committee themselves always conducted themselves with those three things strongly in mind, because at the end of the day, we're humans. We can't strive for all these things all of the time. But they are really, really strong values to take forward, not just in the Olympics, but in life in general. So when we talk about excellence, just doing the best that you can, striving for improvement. And that means you're basically competing against yourself, both in sport and also in life in general. Friendship, better understanding of different cultures between different citizens and how that can manifest itself. And respectfulness, having respect for yourself, your environment, respecting the rules of sport. And basically, rules of sport is actually rules of society in many respects. So we can take these values and we can actually apply them to everyday living as well. In terms of physical health, we know that exercise helps us so much. It delivers oxygen and nutrients to the tissue throughout the body. And that then in turn helps to improve your cardiovascular system. So I don't know if any of you have watched any of the Olympic weightlifting championships, and on those, all the weightlifters have got their veins really wide. They look kind of gross. If you've watched any of that, that's simply because the blood vessels have to be wider because more oxygen has to get around the body. As the heart and lung health improves, the body gets much more efficient at turning glucose into energy. And then actually, even if you're not an Olympic weightlifter, even if, like myself, you go to a fitness class once a week called Body Pump, you lift some weights in Body Pump, even at that very, very low level of physical engagement, that helps to energize you, makes your body more efficient at generating energy. That means that when you've got a busy day, you don't feel that fatigue that kicks in mid-afternoon. I don't know if any of you have, during lockdown and things like that, if you're used to doing physical exercise and then you stop doing physical exercise because you're now curtailed and you don't have the capacity to do it anymore. How many of you felt really lethargic? You felt that slump where you don't feel like moving, you don't feel like doing anything, you can't face even the most simple of tasks. That's your physical health basically degenerating, and it doesn't take that long for that to happen. You start to lose energy to take everyday activities in hand and get them done. So the only thing that will cure that is to get back into exercise again. So, and it will be very quick to get back to where you were as well, by the way. Obviously, also with physical health, that can improve your muscle strength and your stamina. So these things are important as you lead into getting a bit older. I know most of you won't have to worry about that yet, but in the future, you will. When you get to about my age, you'll start to look ahead and think, oh, I need to take better care. But there's also something called strength and conditioning. And any of you who are here who are looking at maybe going into professional sports, or if you're an elite athlete, you'll already know that phrase. If you're not, and this is a new thing for you to hear about, strength and conditioning is basically how do you identify and work on your weakest physical spots? And how do you focus on them, strengthen them equally across the body, and that way you can avoid getting seriously injured as you take your sport forward. Things for strength and conditioning, they vary a lot. So one thing which I think was really fantastic at Loughborough, we have a Pilates course. For those of you who don't know, Pilates is like a core strength development program, a little bit like yoga, but a slightly more intensive version of yoga. And the entire men's lacrosse team at Loughborough take part in that Pilates group. Now, when they first arrived, we weren't sure if they were in the wrong room, why are these guys turning up? They're 17, 18 years old. But actually their lacrosse coach had said to them, go and improve your core strength. So by core strength, they mean your abs, your obliques, your ability to work with resistance bands, for example, basically strengthening and conditioning any weaker areas of your body, which might get overlooked in everyday exercise. And for any of you who are interested, I would definitely recommend, if you have a sport that involves balance, footwork, if it involves mindfulness or concentration on any level, then I'd suggest Pilates might be a good addition. And I know for some of you, you might be thinking that's for middle-aged women, isn't it? No, it's not. Our entire men's lacrosse team do it as well, and they benefit from it. There's also something called muscle memory. So if you do lots of smaller but repeated motions, then your motor system starts to remember those motions. So for example, if you're doing bicep curls on a repeated basis, up and basically at a nice steady pace, the weight isn't really heavy, but it's heavy enough that you start to feel it after a few minutes, that will help you to develop muscle memory. And that can be really useful. First of all, if you go back into lockdown, for example, then your muscles will remember how they move. And you won't necessarily need to maintain the same amount of weights that you were lifting before, but you could still just do the motion and your muscles will recall that motion. It'll help you to maintain that sort of fitness level for longer. And also muscle memory can be useful for ease of movement and things like that as well. So again, as you start to get older, you'll have improved mobility. That means that as you get really old, you might even have a better quality of life by the time you get to be, in your 80s or 90s or beyond. So this is why physical health is so important. I'm sure most of you will know this stuff already, but knowing it isn't the same as actually actioning it and using it to your advantage. In terms of mental health, there is also a huge benefit to doing sport for this. Now, we know what the happiness chemicals are. We also know vaguely how to harness those as well. So things like dopamine and endorphins, they're both generated by some physical activities and doing exercise. So dopamine, for example, completing a task, little wins. So that might be that you didn't feel like going to a fitness class, but you went anyway. Or a little win where you go to the gym and you lift slightly more than you managed to lift the week before, or you run that little bit further than you managed to run before. For endorphins, that can just be any type of exercise, but these things can help you either feeling that sense of reward and positivity, or they can even help to kill pain. So if you have a slight headache, but you do a gentle workout, that might actually get the blood flowing and it might actually assist you with shifting that headache naturally. But the big one for mental health is serotonin. And the reason for that is it has so many different benefits in terms of helping you. And you can generate some serotonin through various different forms of exercise. Basically, whatever you feel like doing. Now, for myself, I do various different things at the university. I benefit from it because a lot of it is subsidized. So, for example, gym membership, we have access to 2 gyms on campus. There's a swimming pool. All these different things are available right there. And it's a neurotransmitter that carries signals between the nerve cells. So one of the key things it can do is assist your memory. And again, as you get older, that's going to get more important to you. But if you've already built up a good bank of serotonin, if your body knows that it gets its serotonin kick by you going for a run, then as you get older, your body's already used to that. And that make it much easier to continue doing even into older age. Really crucially as well, it helps with your mood. So again, if any of you are athletes, if you're looking at playing national level cricket, if you're into rugby or netball or hockey, I bet you noticed a difference in your mood when you weren't able to move around because of lockdown. I think we all did. That's part of the reason why Loughborough put on a series of presentations and basically online activities that enable people to take part in physical stuff, even if they were just in their room. So that's what it does in the brain. It helps your memory and your mood. In terms of what it does in the body, serotonin can help with blood clotting. It can also help with bone health. So that prevents diseases, things like osteoporosis, for example, which can lead to somebody being infirm when they're in old age. It could lead to lack of mobility when you're old. And once you stop moving, it then becomes so much harder to maintain your independence. So these are big things, you know, these are the big things in life which you really want to try and hold on to and not give up your independence for as long as possible. One of the most important functions of serotonin as well is that it's a precursor to melatonin, and that's the hormone for sleep. So I don't know if any of you have trouble sleeping, or if you know what the rapid eye movement part of sleep feels like when you're dreaming and your eyes are moving around. It reduces that. It keeps you in deeper sleep for longer. So it improves the quality and the quantity of your sleep at the same time. And when we're asleep, we problem solve. We fix things which are ticking around in our brain. So actually, all around these chemicals, it's all chemistry, will basically help you in terms of your mental health. And it all comes from a simple little bit of exercise. It doesn't have to be that you're training to be an elite athlete. It could be 30 minutes that you manage to do a few times a week just to get those chemicals flowing. It also gives you a break from screen time. We know as well that obviously you'll make friends through some shared interests. And it can also reduce depression and anxiety as well. So obviously there's loads to love in terms of mental health and what the benefits can be for you if you do take it forward. There's also something which we call soft skill development. So this is now starting to look at how it can help your future career in terms of sport and what it can do for you. I know it looks like these people on the cricket pitch are just messing around here, but they're not. They're actually doing a team exercise, and they're trying to see if they can balance equilibrium and lower themselves down to the ground and then back up again without falling over. But some of the things that we look at Loughborough will be how sport helps you to develop yourself. And some of these, again, I won't go through the entire list, you can read them for yourselves, but they're super important. yes, time management is important. And I know your teachers will be saying to you at school, you need to manage your schedule, you need to have an idea about where you're meant to be. But there are some really big ones on here that you may not even realise are being developed whilst you're taking part in sport. So for example, resilience. Anybody here who's experienced anything like the English football team will know that it's the hardest thing. If you've had a disappointment in sport, or the pressure was on you to make that final shot and you missed, you've got to be so resilient to pick yourself up, basically get back on it again, hold your head high, be proud of the things that went well, and actually to sit back and analyse what went wrong afterwards is really difficult, because most of the time it's much easier to just get rid of whatever went wrong. If something backfired, you think, oh, forget about it, the past is the past. And whilst you don't want to labour the point, you don't want to get stuck on it and fixated, it is important to know what went wrong, because that's how you will change it for next time, and that's how you'll improve in the future. There's also side elements of that as well, things like confidence, determination, and self-reliance. It is important to have a good sense of teamwork and keep an eye on everyone in the team, but also having confidence in yourself to deliver is really important, because there will be times in life when nobody else is going to or can do it for you. So these are what they call the soft skill development that employers really look for. And I think soft skills always makes it sound like it's a little bit feeble, and that's not the case at all. These are really essential criteria that any employer will probably put onto their job specification. So nothing soft about them. Career development wise, Loughborough's research has shown that people who do sport whilst at university earn on average £6,000 per year more than those who are not involved in any way in sports. Now, it's not because you can kick a football or anything like that. It's because you've got those soft skill developments. So things like your physical health being better means that you're less likely to develop such bad stress that you'll go off work ill with stress. You're likely to have more confidence to apply for senior roles. Now, there is what they call the male-female outlook when it comes to this. And this isn't a piece of Loughborough research, this predates that. But one piece of research found that males were much more likely to go for a job and think that they can grow into it, whereas female students or female employees are much more likely to wait until they think they can do the job and then they apply for it. And quite often this might go back to childhood, where boys are encouraged to explore, girls are told to be careful, that type of nurture element to that. But what we've seen with people who undertake sport is that their confidence level is higher. They won't necessarily wait until they are 100% sure that they can definitely do that job. They might be much more inclined to think, I'm 80% there, I'm pretty confident I could do it, and what I don't know now, I'll learn, and they'll just go for it. So actually, women in sport is a good opportunity for us closing that gap when it comes to the gender pay divide. People who do sport also tend to perform better in job interviews. That's probably to do with performing well under pressure, and not feeling flustered when everyone's looking at you, and you're expected to find a response in an interview situation. And also both sport and an interview apply the same kind of concept. It's called the STAR technique. You basically assess the situation and you think about the task which you need to do in order to get the desired results. You then action that task and then you review the results to make sure that it was on point and it's what you wanted out of that whole scenario. So it's a very basic technique that we teach on our MBA. There's many, many more different ones to apply, but both of them very neatly overlap between sports mindset and actually job recruitment mindset. As well with career development, you may not realise it. For any of you who are part of a team who are listening to this presentation, you might not realise it, but you're naturally developing leadership qualities all the time when you're part of a team. So you might be somebody who leaps ahead and basically tries to encourage others to follow them, or that's one style of leadership. Or you might be somebody who actually watches out for other members of the team to make sure that they're all okay and they're all on board. If somebody looks like they're slipping behind as part of the team, you might be that person that reaches out to them and just says, what's going on, or is everything okay? But also you'll have a leader that you're watching and learning from. So anybody who's listening to this, you'll have a coach, you might have a school teacher, you'll have somebody who is assisting you with your sport, which actually then you can watch, you can emulate that person and you can take some criteria from them Or you might look at your coach and think, I don't think they always do it perfectly. What would I do differently if I was going to be a really fantastic coach? So you don't realize it, but naturally you are developing those leadership qualities. And actually, when it comes to applying for your future career, that's what employers will be looking for, is that type of quality. As I said, it's not just applicable for the sports sector. It's also what we can learn from how pro athletes address their career planning. So a pro athlete might be somebody who is hoping to go to the Olympics. They want to be an Olympic champion in long distance running, and they will have a plan B. They'll have a plan C and a plan D of different careers that they could take if that first one doesn't work out. So the other thing we can learn from sport is not just what it does for us physically, mentally, but also how can we plan our future careers so we've got lots of different options, and that way we'll find ourselves, we won't be disappointed. This is an example that I like to use. So Paula Radcliffe is definitely before your time, most of you, but she's a very, very famous, decorated British long distance runner. She's won multiple gold medals, and we have the Paula Radcliffe Athletics Centre, which is based on Loughborough campus. Now, as well as being an Olympic athlete, Paula Radcliffe also got a double first in politics and international relations. So she's also a very, very smart individual. She wanted to obviously go pro with her sport, but we all know that as a sports person, your career prospect is going to be limited, first of all, by your age. I was shocked to hear that Simone Biles, the best gymnast in the world, is 24, and that's considered extremely old for her profession. And everyone coming through is now 16 and 17 years old. So your career as a sports person is going to have a finite time attached to it automatically. That's assuming that you don't get injured at any point in any way. So you need to have these backup options. And these are just some of the backup options that a pro athlete might consider. So my point about this is, even if you're thinking, right, I'm going to study and I'm going to become a civil engineer, have in the back of your mind, actually, I could become a civil engineer, or I could become an engineering consultant. I could become an engineering manager, because engineering firms need managers who understand the technical side of the job as well. I might become a civil engineering academic and go back into the classroom and teach some students about civil engineering. So there's all these different areas that you can look at. My advice is, we know that these are uncertain times. I'm sure everyone has overused the word unprecedented very much in the last 18 months. My point is, let's take a leaf out of these pro athletes' books. Don't have your eggs all in one basket. You can have your dream job and profession, but at the same time, you can have a few backup options as well. In terms of emotional intelligence, I'm hoping most of you all know what this actually is, but just in case you've forgotten, it's the capacity to be aware of, crucially, to control and express one's emotions and to handle interpersonal relationships judiciously and empathetically. So all that means is, it just means being in control of your emotions and being able to spot emotions in others and respond to them appropriately. This is really crucial for professionalism. Any professional setting will require this of you. And okay, sometimes professionalism slips in certain quarters and you don't feel like working with one particular person. So you might have to rein it in and be really on top of it. But it's very important, if you want to get ahead with your career, that you have a handle on those emotions, that you're able to manage them. And nobody's saying be a featureless individual in the workplace who never gets annoyed about anything, because we all do. But what I am saying is that emotional intelligence can help us in everyday situations. If there's just an employee that we don't get on very well with because we're very different personality-wise, or if there's something at work that you really care about and you really want people to listen to you and take on your arguments, removing and managing your emotional capacity on that is probably going to serve you much better, because then you'll be able to make a persuasive argument rather than an emotive argument. Emotive arguments are very easily dismissed. And again, these things all come out in sport. How many times have you seen in sport somebody's about to take a penalty goal kick, and their nerves get the better of them, or they take the kick, they miss, and afterwards they're crying. That's the emotional response to that. But what you want to try and control and make sure is that at that sort of point, the emotions are manageable, so you can still achieve what you need to achieve. And then afterwards, then you can let the emotions out. So This is a crucial factor of what we try and teach our students when we're looking at sport at Loughborough. And it takes practice and it takes maturity, and it's really not easy at all. And it's not easy, for example, as if any of you are part of a team, at the end of a match when you really felt like you should have won, but the other team won instead, you have to go around and shake hands with everybody. Oh, it's hard, because part of you is going, no, don't want to shake hands, because part of you is that inner child that's really annoyed that you lost. But good sportsmanship shows that actually you need to suck it up, you need to get in there and do the rounds, because that's sportsmanship, and then move on from it, analyze what you did wrong and come back and get them next time. So thinking a little bit about the support that we offer to our elite athletes. We do, as I said, have a lot of elite athletes at Loughborough, and they get some fantastic support. So obviously, being the best university in the world for sport, we do have an outstanding provision for students, but it's not purely financial. So a lot of students will ask me, do you have sports scholarships? We do have some, but they tend to be more aligned with the package that we offer our students rather than a cash discount off the tuition fee. Some universities will offer a big discount off the tuition fee, and then for everything else, you have to then pay for that service. So actually, it doesn't always balance out as being completely in your favour. At Loughborough, we offer discounted fees for students who get high academic grades. So if you've got really fantastic grades, then we'll give you a percentage scholarship off your tuition fee. But if you're really sporty, we'll give you this additional benefits instead. So I'm going to use Peace Praskovia as my example. Peace came to Loughborough as a star netball player from Uganda. She's from rural Uganda. And actually, she excelled when she came to Loughborough. She came for a master's in marketing. She now plays for the Australian national team. She was the flag bearer for Uganda in the 2018 Commonwealth Games. And she's, every now and then she'll just drop a text and just let me know how she's getting on. She's somebody that I really think did an amazing job when she came to Loughborough. So Peace benefited from obviously some academic support when she first arrived. Things like if she had an exam at the same day as she had a match, then we could extend her examination deadline, or we could extend her essay deadlines so that she didn't have to choose between doing the match or completing her academic studies. She was also on quite an intensive training and coaching program. So it was hard work for her. She had to be part of that every single evening and at weekends as well. She had her strength and conditioning that I mentioned earlier. So yes, some Pilates, but also working with resistance bands, core training, things like that, and general fitness training. She also had a dedicated nutritionist. So she had somebody to sit down and look and meal plan with her about what type of meals she needs to be eating to be the ideal weight for her sports. Now, Peace Praskovia is around she's about 6'5". So she's a very, very tall person. She needs to have enough energy to function on the court, but she also needs to be quite lean so that she can move fast. So that was the program that our nutritionist was working with her on. She had access to sports massage and physio as well. And then she had access to our Sport Development Centre, the SDC. Now, the SDC is a very powerful organisation within Loughborough. It sits separately from the rest of the university to some extent. And the SDC have got the power to basically say, we want that athlete to receive this type of support. So they are very, very important people to connect with. If any of you are looking to come to Loughborough, if you are an elite athlete or you want to go into athletics in some capacity, basically you get your offer first, and then you come to me and I'll link you up to the SDC, depending on what kind of level of sport you're currently playing. So there is a huge amount of support for our athletes. The training and coaching sessions, as I said, will be every evening. And for all of our key sports, so swimming, hockey, netball, rugby, cricket, tennis, and athletics, for all of those, there is a head coach at Loughborough. And as well as the head coach, there is also a series of sort of coaching managers as well. So there is an awful lot of support available. On top of that, as I said, you've also got volunteers who work with the Sport Development Centre, different staff member for different events. There's a whole office full of people, a whole team full of people waiting to support our athletes. Just a quick note then, a little bit about our research as well. So I know most of you won't be PhD students, but I just wanted to give you an idea about what is it that makes sport relevant globally? So we've talked a little bit about how it can do things for you personally, what it can do to your body, your mind, your future career. But in terms of global impact, the research at Loughborough also has a huge impact as well. So one of our teams at Loughborough University has invented a low-cost ventilator which can help to treat COVID patients. It's simple to use, it's non-electric. So if there are countries which are developing countries or have load shedding or whatever it may be, this ventilator can still be utilised. And it's also very oxygen efficient. So it uses about 1/3 of the amount of oxygen as the high flow oxygen systems does. So SheVent, that was created by 5 of our students and one of our supervising staff members. And that is now being rolled out, first of all in Nigeria, and then secondly in India. And hopefully that's going to lead to a scale up, as I said, that could benefit any country where there's a higher COVID rate. We also look at things like human trafficking in Ghana. There's a football club scam where young street kids are basically targeted by a gang and encouraged to go join them with the promise of being spotted by a football club. The kids got talent, they basically take them to Europe and they traffic them, and they become entirely dependent on this organized gang. Now, our researchers in the geography department are actually looking at that human trafficking from a human geography point of view. So this is yet another way in which our research can have an impact. We also looked at everything as varied from counter-terrorism at the Olympic Games in Rio, right the way through to our body scanner. And that's the pictures that you can see behind there. So the body scanner, the Griffin body scanner has basically increased the accuracy of body scanning by 4,500%. So that has implications for prosthetics, for fashion. If you want something tailor-made, it can fit you exactly. Also security impact as well as ergonomics. So ergonomics being anything that's used for human consumption. So these things, these areas of research are part of the reason why Loughborough has won so many of the Queen's Anniversary Prizes for world leading research. So I hope by the end of this talk, I'm going to wrap it up a little bit now, because I think we've probably got some questions and you're probably tired of hearing my voice. But really, at the end of this talk, just want to wrap it up by reminding you, with sports being part of your university life, and obviously it being part of Loughborough's personality as a university, it can help you to redefine success. It's not just about winning. It's about beating your personal best and demonstrating sportsmanship, being humble in victory and magnanimous in defeat. Those things can be really helpful. It helps to build you as a person, and that ultimately is then going to make you more attractive to future employers. In terms of how it's served us, this kind of ethos, we're not just paying lip service that you should be healthy and have this kind of attitude. This backbone of Loughborough University that sport provides has served us very, very well. So we've been University of the Year many years, since 2015. Just to recap, we're a top-ranked university. We're currently 7th in all the UK league tables, so very comfortably inside the top 10. We've won the Best Student Experience Award 8 times in the last 14 years, and we've won Best Accommodation. We've raised more money for charity than any other university based outside of London. So these are all byproducts of the ethos that we have at Loughborough, and you can find out more by following our details there. We also work with a fantastic local partner, which is Global Education, and their offices are located all across Southern Africa, and that's George's team. So I'm very happy for you to connect with me. You can reach out to me on email, or you can go to our website as well. And I can see that there are a few questions in here. So what I'm going to do is I'll stop sharing my screen, and I'll take some advice from George about how he would like to handle the questions which are coming in. Thank you for listening.
Brilliant, Alicia. That was just really interesting from my point of view. Like,
good.
There's so many things I was listening in on that, and I was like, I wish I took that note. I wish I did that during my degree. And it's, I love these sessions because it gives a chance for students to see something different, and rather than just what they can Google search or see on a generic website, you can see all of Loughborough's rankings. I think Loughborough's website's a little bit different. The amount of content that you guys push out is great. And to anybody listening in on this, please go have a look at their research section of the website. The promo on there is just brilliant. Alicia, I got a couple of questions for you, and go through a couple of student questions. I've got a list of questions from some counselors, and we'll just have a bit of a discussion on them.
Yeah.
Joel Landers, excuse my pronunciation, Joel, he's asking, apart from the sports that you've mentioned, is boxing offered at all? And can you do more than one sport?
Yes, so yes and yes, basically, Joel. You can do as many sports as you've got time for. Every Wednesday afternoon, there's no teaching. That's when most people do their sport, but then you've also got evenings and weekends as well. The only sports that we don't have, so we have an equestrian team, but we don't have a stables on campus. That's off campus, but you can still join the equestrian team. And then because we're so far inland at Loughborough, we're right in the middle of the UK. We do have a sailing team, but you need to travel to go sailing. But everything else, yeah, we have.
Alicia, one of the things you mentioned was how sport is not just about doing sport, but how the sport attributes can actually help, another degree or something that's, your career aspect of it. Can you share a little bit with everybody with the sport with Loughborough and the way it helps support students, why it's advantageous to go to a Loughborough than, let's say, looking at a Division 1 in the US or a D2 or D3 in the US? I kind of want to show students the difference between Loughborough in the UK compared to the United States, if you don't mind.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's quite hard to comment on sort of the United States side of things. From a Loughborough point of view, do you mean what the benefit of how our sport sits within other programs not sport related? Yes. Directly?
Exactly.
Okay. Yeah, so I think, I mean, the big advantage obviously is placements. I think that's the number one difference that I'd probably highlight. So every single undergraduate degree at Loughborough has a work placement as an option. That's a 1-year work placement where you study for 2 years at Loughborough, then you go out into the world of work and you just work. You don't study at the same time. It's paid. You get a professional qualification at the same time. So at the end of your work placement, you hand in a report, and in return, they give you a DPS, that's a Diploma of Professional Studies. And then you come back for your final year and you finish your degree. So if you're looking at sport alongside, say, chemical engineering or mechanical engineering, if you're interested, you could do your work placement somewhere like a sport technology firm. So maybe one that looks at, I don't know if you saw it, the swim team at for GB nearly got disqualified because they had shark fin technology as part of their swimwear. That type of technology was developed at Loughborough. So shark fin technology is basically, it slots together in a very hydrodynamic way. And it made the swim team that little bit faster. So they were then penalised for having technology that assisted their time. So we had to change how they had that. The same thing happened to our cycling team as well. So Team GB had cycling shorts, which kept the muscles warm in between their sets. And again, that was perceived to give an unfair advantage. Now, there's no rules against this technology, but not all countries have access to it. That would be a student who's studied materials engineering, but is also perhaps into sport as well. So good knowledge of sport, good knowledge of materials, they can apply both. Or like you saw with Paula Radcliffe, a student might study something totally different, totally unrelated, but also be achieving in sports at the same time. So the two things slot together, I think, because you've got those interchangeable skill sets as part of both of them. And, whether you're doing sport and that builds your confidence, and then you go in and give a presentation at the UN, they're both confidence builders. So I think that's probably the difference between us.
Yeah, I think for me, listening in on this presentation and how you've just answered that now, I think a lot of students in South Africa who are really gifted with sports, they've got great leadership qualities, they do a variety of sports, very different to other countries around the world where high school kids are only doing 1 or 2 sports. In South Africa and Zimbabwe, for example, we do multiple sports throughout the year and at a really high level as well.
High standard, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And a lot of students are always asking me specifically is, I want to go to the US, and then they'll go and apply to the US, but then they will look for scholarships, and the only scholarships that you get are Division 3, Division 4, where you don't get the support. And if you're looking to pay international school fees, you have to look at the right student support. And that's one reason why we love Loughborough at Global Education, is that type of support that you get transcends your sporting world, because your sports will only get you so far. The career of it is the big thing here.
Yeah, and it's also, it can be tailor-made as well. So we have had students where they've come to us, let's say they're playing one position in rugby. They've come to us, we've seen potential that they could play a slightly different position and could be very good in it, but they need to gain weight in order to carry that position off, or they need to build muscle tone, or they need to be lighter and faster. And basically, we've had students who have come to us in one position that they felt comfortable in and always considered themselves to be. They've come to Loughborough, they've undergone a slightly transitional process for about 2 years, and then they've ended up playing for Saracens in the UK. So we've transformed that student a little bit, and that's partly the advantage of having a head coach who knows their students inside out. I mean, I was really pleased this year. We had Russell Cobb, who's the head coach of cricket, has met with students in South Africa. He came with me to South Africa back in the days when we could actually travel, and engage with those students, and actually took the time to talk to students as young as 14 or 15 years old, because we can recognise actually this process starts really young, and we know that South African students start with their sport and they get seriously into it at quite a young age, compared to other countries. So we definitely want to try and support those students where we can, and if we can enhance their ability, we want them to get to the highest level sport that they can manage, basically, whilst not sacrificing their academic abilities at the same time.
I've got another student here who's asking, do you do something similar with postgrad? If a student was looking to do their postgraduate at Loughborough?
Okay.
I think that's the question, yeah.
Yeah, so we have.
There.
Okay, yes, yeah, we do. It's for all levels of sport, so and all levels of study, I should say. So the support is there. It's not just for undergraduate students. The placements aren't there for postgrads because you've only got 1 year to study a master's in the UK. So your year tends to be quite busy getting your master's sorted. For some of our London programs, we do have a 3-month internship, but it's not quite the same as a full year working. But in terms of sports support, it's definitely there for postgrads. Peace Prascovia, the Ugandan netball player, she was doing a master's at Loughborough. And some students actually stay then for their PhD. We do have funded PhD opportunities as well, if that's the kind of area that you're looking to go into.
What are the type of requirements that students would look at undergrad? And if you want to mention postgrad as well, briefly, what type of requirements from Zimbabwe and South Africa should they expect to see at Loughborough? Okay, so we are high ranking, but we don't need you to get straight A stars because we're not looking for superhumans. We're looking for nice, ordinary people who have a social life, who enjoy sport and who do some voluntary work and things like that. So generally speaking, for A levels, we're looking typically for AAB or ABB, somewhere along those. So I think for the matric, that's probably 7-7 and then 6-6-6-6 for every subject excluding life orientation. But as I said, if you come to us and you've got solid grades, we look for a good trajectory. So we don't want to see grades skipping about all over the place. Generally solid grades over a period of time. If you then do a bit of volunteering, if you do some sport, that's our kind of student. And for a postgrad master's student? Sorry, yeah, for postgrad masters, typically second class upper. So we'll be looking for a 2-1. Some programs will accept a 2-2. And those will be things like marketing. So maybe if you've done your first degree was in engineering, it wasn't for you, you've decided you now to look at marketing or management, we are a bit more flexible with those. So as long as you don't have lots of resits, and as long as your 2-2 is, again, like mid-range, then that should be fine. For the MBA, you need 3 years of work experience. So I don't know if you get any MBA inquiries, but if you do, that was the program that I happened to study at Loughborough. So I'm very happy to have a chat with those students, and I can tell you all the programs that were good, all the modules that were tricky, and which lecturers to watch out for because they're harsh markers and things like that. So I'm happy to have a chat with anyone about that too. Brilliant. And I got one question from myself that I always want students to be aware of when they're looking to decide at a university is the city itself. You know, what are some recommendations that you have around Loughborough? What are some areas that you really like? I know it's a bit off topic, but I think it's also prevalent for students to know what it's like. Yeah, it's fine. It's a countryside campus. So Loughborough is not a city, it's a town. When I say countryside, it doesn't mean there's nothing there. So there's stuff there, there's cafes, there's restaurants, there's bowling, there's clubs, there's bars and so on in the town itself, and there's supermarkets as well. But you've got around Loughborough itself, you've got beautiful countryside. Every single
time I go walking with my dogs in the woods, I always see Loughborough students there jogging, cycling. When it was snowing, I saw the canoe club canoeing down the hill, which is called Beacon Hill. So taking their canoes right to the top, and then they were just sledding their way down. So that's the kind of environment that you're in. You've got Nottingham, Derby and Leicester nearby. So you've got 3 big cities within a 10 to 15 minute train ride away. If you want the big night out, you've got Nottingham is probably the best big night out that you can go for. You've got Leicester, which is really good for shopping, but you're not here at university to shop and to party necessarily. I think Loughborough as a campus has got everything you'll need. As I said, you've got nightlife and stuff in the town as well. But for the most part, it's a nice sort of relatively relaxed sort of environment, and obviously loads and loads of sports stuff going on all the time.
Yeah, I think we're going to make a few parents happy with this, especially parents that are unsure of, you want to have that support level. And I plead with all students and parents, do your research, go online and look for what you can compare to what you've just heard in this presentation. It really is worth looking into. Alicia, I got another question for you here. It's from Joel again. So Joel, thank you very much. He's asking here, is there an age criteria?
No, there's no age limit at all. So it's fine. I mean, it depends. If you're very young, you may need to have a guardianship letter, but in terms of the upper age limit, there isn't one. The other thing that I'd add, that you just raised a very good point, George, about doing your research. Because of our student experience being so strong, we're very happy. If you want to talk to existing Loughborough students, we can easily put you in touch with a few, and Global has sent you a few this year to Loughborough anyway, so I'm sure they can put you in touch, but we can always arrange that if you did want to get the inside information about what is it like as a student coming from South Africa.
Great. Joel, please do send us an email, and more than happy to have a conversation with you and discuss your options as well. And just to reiterate what Alicia is saying here to everybody, Global help you with and counsel you directly with the universities. We're like an in-house admissions team. So we really go above and beyond to help you get the right opportunity at your fingertips. Alicia, got another question here from Sanelli, who's talking about football. I'm presuming soccer. Sanelli, soccer is football huge in the United Kingdom. And the question here is, are football scholarships given, and how seriously is the football taken? It's
taken very seriously. And as a result, actually, we don't have that many scholarships to give out, partly because the competition is really, really fierce. So for Loughborough, we have 4 football teams. There's a first and second team that are part of our performance squad. And then we have the third and fourth team, which is what we call the development squad. So these are basically students that we think have the potential to go on. But we've had signings before for Arsenal, for Newcastle, for Barnsley. We're partnered with West Ham FC and with Chelsea FC. And actually, our university is the only university in the UK whose first team play Manchester United's reserve team every year. And every year, pretty much we lose. But still, we play them. So yeah, we take football really seriously. In terms of scholarships, as I said, for sport, we tend to give more of a package of support rather than a discount scholarship. But if your academic grades are good, that will be when you get into the 25% scholarship territory. So studies is as important to us at Loughborough as your sport, basically. We don't give big awards just for sport alone.
And just anybody listening in on that as well, scholarships are very limited around the world now, and there's more people applying to university than ever before. So really look at the course, look at what you want to do with your career first. Look at those options before looking at the scholarship. I know financials are a stress in South Africa and Zimbabwe, especially with the current COVID pandemic that we're all dealing with. But please have those conversations with us, and we're more than happy to help look into it for you as well.
Yeah. And just to add to that, if I may, if it helps, whilst you're doing your research, please look at the total cost of study. Now, with a high-ranked university, it will be a more expensive study option because you're paying for the placement opportunities, really. You're paying for the class of teaching that you're going to receive. However, the living cost in some places will be much lower than others. So, for example, Loughborough campus, not being near a city, is automatically going to be a much lower cost of living. So by the time you've got a scholarship, maybe our lower cost of living accommodation, you may actually be paying a lot less than you would pay at another university, which is much more low on the rankings. So please do full analysis when you're breaking it down for your parents.
Brilliant. Anybody, if there's any more questions, please do put them through. Alicia, thank you very much for your time. I really do appreciate it. It's been wonderful to hear you speak and showcase this information. I took a couple of screenshots for myself.
Okay. You're going to hit the gym now.
Yeah, the mindfulness one, the mental side of it, was something that I wish I focused on when I was doing my degree. I just felt I could have done so much more if I had focused a little bit more on that side of things. I did international business, and that was my clear focus with my career. But the amount of work that you can do, that you can put together, I think when you're doing and treating yourself like exactly how you said, treat it like a skill, that you have to harness. I think that would have done me some real good. So I really did appreciate that.
Thank you so much for the platform for doing this. I really appreciate that as well. And I'm sure your students are in very good hands, but if they have got any extra questions about Loughborough in particular, anyone's very welcome to reach out, and I'm happy to answer any queries or have a one-to-one chat with anybody if they want to follow up on this.
Brilliant. For everybody listening in as well, we'll be sharing this recording. You all will receive an email with a little bit of further details, Alicia's contacts, the webinar presentation as well. So please do keep in mind, look out for that email. And as always, please visit our website, visit Loughborough's website, do your research and speak to Global. We do a lot of the hard work for you, and we can even put those costs together for you as well. So you can even have that discussion with your parents as well. So please, it's all about getting the right information the first time around. All right, everybody, I don't think we've got any more questions here. So Alicia, I'm happy to sign off. Any last words from you?
No, just that. Thank you so much to everyone who's attended. Obviously, thanks, George, for the platform to reach out, but a big thank you to the students and the counsellors who have taken the time to listen to me. It was a bit of an unusual presentation. We don't like to just go down the route of the information that's in the public domain. It was a bit different. So if you've got any feedback about it, or if there's anything that you'd like to know more about, then please do feel free to get in touch. And I'm happy to connect with you. Thanks for your time.
Good night, everybody. Keep safe.
Bye.